So today we will going to discuss some of the major ascending tracts of the spinal cord, which include the anterior spinothalamic, the lateral spinothalamic, the posterior and the anterior spinocerebellar tract, and the fasciculus gracilis and the cuneatus, and a small tract that is the cunocerebellar tract. These are the major ascending tracts, and from the name we are aware that they are coming from the spinal cord towards the thalamus, from the spinal cord towards the thalamus, from the spinal cord towards the cerebellum, and from the cuneatus nucleus towards the cerebellum. So by the name we should have to remember the name of the tract is an indication from the starting of first order neuron till the end of the third order neuron. So coming to the tracts that are responsible for certain type of the movements and the certain type of sensation that we will be going to discuss in each tract separately. So before discussing some points, we have to remember for the ascending tract that I have combined it from the book, that mostly the ascending tract rely on the thalamus. When the third order neuron is going to synapse with the second order neuron, it is going to synapse with the posterolateral nucleus of the thalamus. In the thalamus, there is a major relay center for mostly the ascending tracts. And the second thing that is important to remember for the ascending tracts is that the third order neuron that after synapsing from the thalamus, it terminates on the cortex or the cerebellum of the opposite side. Like the sensations coming from the right side, the third order neuron will going to give its stimulus on the left side of the cerebellum. While that of the sensation coming from the right side will going towards the right side of the cerebellum. That's why we call it as the information third order neuron terminate on the cerebellum of the same side. So this is a very important point we should remember. It makes it easy to remember the ascending tracts. Now coming to the lateral spinothalamic tract, the first tract that is responsible for the carrying of the pain and temperature pathway. So when the sensation of the pain and temperature pathway is giving a stimulus, then the cells of the substantia gelatinosa that we have discussed in the external feature of spinal cord, that this nucleus is lying in the posterior gray column. The first synapse is taking place at the substantia gelatinosa. After that, these fibers will going to the axons of this nucleus in the substantia gelatinosa will going to cross the central canal and continue anteriorly upward. When they continue upward, they will going to pass through the lower part of medulla and the upper part of medulla as the fibers of the lateral spinothalamic tract. And these are also combined with the anterior spinothalamic tract, too called as the spinal lemniscus. Here you can see at this level it is called as the lateral spinothalamic tract or the spinal lemniscus. Now when it passes through the pons, that is upper part of the medulla oblongata upper, then in the brainstem there is the medulla oblongata, then comes the pons and then the midbrain. We will going to discuss a brainstem in a separate video. Now when this medulla oblongata, in the upper part of medulla oblongata, these fibers are converged and they go upward, and in the pons they converge at the level of the pons. They will continue upward, and at the level of midbrain they will going to form the synapse with the third order neuron. Where this synapse take place is in the thalamus. Here you can see this is the cerebellum, and in the cerebellum there is the thalamus present at the lateral edges of the third ventricle. In the thalamus there is going to be a synapse of the second order neuron. Here you can see this is a second order neuron that is continuing from the spinal cord up till the level of the thalamus, where it go to synapse with the third order neuron that will ultimately pass through the posterior limb of the internal capsule that is present between the thalamus caudate nucleus and the lentiform nucleus. By this posterior limb of internal capsule, these fibers are going to pass and form the corner radiator that will going to converge on the cortex of the cerebrum. So here you can see this is the termination of the lateral spinothalamic tract. And one more thing we can observe in the lateral spinothalamic tract, that these fibers cross the opposite side of the midline of the spinal cord and continue upward till the thalamus, and then it terminate into the cerebrum. It carry the pain and temperature pathway. Now if we are well explained about the lateral spinothalamic tract, we are ultimately explained about the anterior spinothalamic tract, because the anterior spinothalamic tract is more or less similar towards the lateral spinothalamic tract. Here this or second order neuron will also going to synapse at the substantia gelatiноsa, then it will cross the midline and then it continue upward as a spinal lemniscus at the level of midbrain pons, and then at the thalamus it relay and synapse with the third order neuron that will going to pass through the internal capsule and the corner radiator and terminate on the cortex. But the difference in the anterior and the lateral spinothalamic tract is that this anterior spinothalamic tract carry the light touch and pressure pathways. When there is a light touch in the skin, this sensation is carried through the anterior spinothalamic tract. But more or less this is the only difference between the anterior and the lateral spinothalamic. So you should remember this point, and it is very easy to remember two tracts ultimately.